Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. And today we are diving into something that you see pretty much every day.
Yeah.
And that is the sentence, the quick brown fox jumps over the
Yeah.
lazy dog.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's everywhere. I mean, I see it on clothing and
Yeah.
websites and
It's on a lot of like stock photography too, right? Like
placeholder tags.
so you see it everywhere. But I mean, how many people actually know like the history of it?
Yeah.
Why is this thing so ubiquitous?
Exactly.
And I have to admit, I was one of those people, like I knew the sentence,
Yeah.
obviously, but I never really stopped to think about like, why is it so popular? Why is this one sentence
Right.
the one that we see everywhere?
Yeah. And it is interesting because it's just a sentence.
Right.
But there's clearly more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's why we're going to deep dive into this today.
Absolutely.
So before we jump in, I guess the first thing we need to cover is just kind of like the basics.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is this sentence? What makes it so special?
Right.
And for anyone who doesn't know,
Yeah.
this sentence is what's called a pangram.
Mm.
And so a pangram is basically a sentence that uses every letter in the alphabet.
Right.
At least once.
Yeah, so it's designed to include every single letter of the English alphabet.
Right.
And it's kind of like it's not like a natural sentence that you would just come up with in everyday speech.
Right.
It's designed specifically for that purpose.
Exactly. So it's like you said, it's like purposefully constructed to use all the letters of the alphabet.
Yeah.
So it's not like, someone was just like, let me write this beautiful flowing sentence. And look, it uses every letter.
Right.
Like it was literally made for that specific purpose.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's not even the only pangram out there.
Right.
There are lots of different pangrams.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, this is the one that really took off.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's what's so fascinating, right? Like why this one in particular.
Exactly.
So that's really what we want to get to the bottom of today.
Okay.
Like, there must be a reason that this specific sentence is the one that everyone knows and uses.
Yeah.
And not some other pangram.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, so I guess kind of the next step is to look at where the sentence came from.
Right.
Like, how did it even originate?
Right.
Where did it come from?
Yeah, so the origins of the sentence are actually kind of shrouded in mystery.
Okay.
There's no definitive answer
for
when it first appeared or who first coined it.
Yeah.
But we do have some clues based on where it shows up, in history.
Uh-huh.
And so the earliest known appearances of the sentence date back to the late 19th century. So like the 1890s, around that time.
Yeah.
And it seems to have popped up kind of around the same time that the typewriter was becoming more and more common.
Okay.
So, back then typewriters were a pretty new invention. Yeah. And people were still kind of figuring out how to use them effectively.
Yeah.
And so the sentence, because it uses all the letters of the alphabet, was a really handy tool for testing out typewriters.
Yeah.
So you could type out this sentence and you could make sure that all of the keys were working properly, that the spacing was correct, that the alignment was good.
Yeah.
And it just kind of became a standard test. Typewriters.
So it was like a quality control
exactly.
kind of a thing for the typewriters.
And it was also used for things like testing out telegraph transmissions.
Oh, yeah?
So, they would send the sentence over the telegraph wires.
Wow.
To make sure that the signal was clear.
Sure.
And that all the letters were coming through properly.
So it really was like a test for technology in general.
Absolutely.
Not just typewriters.
Yeah, it was a way to make sure that all the letters were being transmitted correctly.
Exactly.
Whether it was through a typewriter or through the telegraph.
That's so interesting.
Uh-huh.
So we kind of know where it came from now.
Yeah.
It was this kind of like quality control sentence for testing technology.
Uh-huh.
But the next question is how did it go from that to being this cultural phenomenon?
Yeah, a good question.
Like, why is this the sentence that everyone knows?
Right.
Why is this the sentence that we see everywhere?
Uh-huh. I think part of it is just, it became so widely used in those early days of the typewriter and the telegraph that it just kind of stuck around.
Okay.
It became familiar to people.
Right.
And I think it also has a kind of catchy rhythm to it. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Yeah, it does flow very nicely.
It's got a nice flow.
Yeah.
And so I think that's part of why it's so memorable.
Okay.
And then, of course, once it started to be used in popular culture, you see it pop up in movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
And things like that.
Yeah.
I think that just kind of cemented its status
Okay.
as a cultural icon.
So it really just took off from there and never stopped.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's such a simple sentence.
Yeah.
But it has this really rich history.
Right.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that, even the most mundane things can have these really fascinating backstories.
That's very true. So I guess kind of to wrap things up.
Yeah.
We've talked about the origins of the sentence, how it became so popular.
Right.
I guess one final thought for our listeners.
Right.
The next time you see this sentence, think about its journey.
Right.
Think about all the different ways that it's been used over the years.
Yeah.
From testing out typewriters to being this cultural icon.
Yep.
And, maybe you'll even be inspired to discover the hidden histories of some other everyday things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there that we take for granted that has these really interesting stories behind them.
Exactly. And maybe you'll be the one to uncover them.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It was fun.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.
All right, so get ready because today we are diving deep into a sentence that you probably haven't thought much about, at least since grade school.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. Ring a bell.
Oh, yeah, sure, of course. It's a pangram, right? Like all the letters of the alphabet are in there.
Exactly. That classic pangram, we've all heard it. But today, we're going way beyond just, the alphabet part.
Sounds good. Where are we headed with this?
We found this really interesting batch of writing prompts from Quora.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, all using this sentence. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog as a starting point for stories.
Oh, that's interesting. Like a constraint, kind of forcing you to get creative.
Right. And the results are made really inventive stuff.
I can see how that sparks some interesting ideas, yeah.
So one that I thought was really funny took this humorous approach.
Okay.
Imagining the fox and the dog are rivals in some kind of wacky animal Olympics.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah, and the writer describes the scene like this. The crowd roared with laughter as the fox, wearing a tiny sweatband and just this determined look on its face, tripped over the sleeping dog and landed face first in a plate of kibble.
Okay, that's hilarious. The sweatband, that's a great detail. I can just picture it.
I know, right? It's so unexpected.
Exactly, and that kind of unexpected detail, I mean, that's where the humor comes from, Taking something familiar and twisting it.
Absolutely. And it's not just the image, the way they use the words too, tripped over. It's literal in the scene, but also he tripped up in the competition.
Oh, yeah. That's clever, adding that extra layer of comedy with the wordplay.
It's amazing how much they did with that one little sentence.
It really shows you the power of a good prompt.
Totally. And so, okay, then we've got another response that went in a totally different direction.
Okay.
This one was more serious, interpreting the sentence as a metaphor for social dynamics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so the quick brown fox represents ambition, and the lazy dog symbolizes complacency, right?
That's a really interesting interpretation. Kind of makes you think about different approaches to life.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about the animals anymore. It's about bigger ideas, societal values, paths we choose.
Yeah, it's using those simple elements, the fox and the dog, to explore these really complex themes.
And it works. It really makes you think.
Metaphors can be so powerful that way.
For sure. And the range of ideas here is it's pretty wild.
I'm ready for the next one. What else have you got?
Okay, so then there's this one, and this one goes full on sci-fi.
No way. Okay, lay it on me.
So get this. The fox is now an alien creature.
What?
Yeah. And it's breaking out of a super high security lab.
All right.
And the dog is a robotic guard dog that it has to outsmart to escape.
Wow. That's really creative. I mean, taking that basic sentence and turning it into a whole sci-fi world.
I know, it's incredible.
And they actually did a great job with the world building there. introducing the lad, the robotic dog, all these details that make it feel real, but it's still grounded in that original sentence.
Right. It all fits together.
It's a great example of how a prompt like this, even something simple, can be the spark for some really expansive thinking.
Totally. So we've gone from a simple pangram to comedy to social commentary, and now we're in a sci-fi world, all from that one sentence.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It really is. So, like, what stands out to you about all these different approaches?
Well, it's funny because we often think of constraints as limitations, but what we're seeing here is that they can actually fuel creativity.
That's a good point.
Yeah, in every example, the writers were limited by having to use that original sentence, but that limitation, in a way, it forced them to come up with these really inventive solutions.
And that's what led to these unique stories.
Exactly. It really highlights how sometimes thinking outside the box, it comes from having a box in the first place.
It's true. So it makes you wonder, what story might you find hidden inside a seemingly simple sentence like, well,
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Exactly. Maybe give it a try, see where your imagination takes you.
I think I will. That was a really fun deep dive.
I agree. Thanks for joining me.
Anytime, anytime.
And until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.
I'll do my best.
I know you will. All right, so you wanted to dive deep into common English expressions. Well, get ready because we found a treasure trove.
A treasure trove.
Yeah, we found this YouTube video. It's called 250 Important English Expressions for Daily Conversation.
Wow, 250. That's a lot.
It is, right. It's from this awesome YouTuber, Speak English with Vanessa. And she just throws in tons of idioms, ADD phrasal verbs. It's all the spices and secret sauces to make your English sound really natural.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. So if you're prepping for a big presentation, or maybe you're finally trying to tackle that English novel you've been putting off, or hey, maybe you just love the quirks of language, this deep dive, it's for you.
Because let's face it, textbook English only gets you so far.
Exactly. So Vanessa kicks off her video, and right away she offers this free 27-page ebook with all the phrases from the video.
Oh, wow, that's generous.
It is. And she even suggests you can sleep with it under your pillow to absorb it all.
Haha, now that's dedication. But it does touch on this idea of passive learning, right? We might not remember everything perfectly from just that, but just seeing those words and phrases over and over, it does help you become familiar with them.
It's kind of like, when you hear a song on the radio a lot, you start singing along, even if you never actually sat down and learned the lyrics.
Right. It seeps into your brain. And when it comes to idioms, one of the first things Vanessa emphasizes is that you can't take them literally.
Which is so important. She uses the example of calm before the storm.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's not about actual weather, right?
No, it's more like that feeling you get, that tension, right before something big is about to happen.
Exactly. It's almost like those scenes in a movie where the music suddenly stops and you just know something dramatic is about to go down.
Right. Like you said, you can't take the words literally, but they paint this vivid picture.
And Vanessa, she really breaks things down and organizes all these idioms into categories.
So that's interesting. Like what?
Like weather idioms, animal idioms, even money idioms. It's really cool. She even has a category for the ones that just don't fit anywhere.
Oh, that's funny. So what do you think about that approach, grouping them together?
I think it's smart. It's almost like you're making little file folders in your brain for these expressions.
Yeah, and from a cognitive perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Categorizing things is super important for how our brains store and retrieve information.
So it's not just about making things neat and tidy. It's about helping us actually learn these idioms better.
Precisely. And it allows us to see the connections between them. A lot of the weather idioms, like when it rains, it pours, they often talk about things happening all at once, whether good or are bad.
Oh, that makes sense. Like when you're having one of those days where everything just seems to go your way.
Exactly. Or, when everything seems to go wrong at the same time, like Vanessa's example of 2020, she talks about the pandemic happening, the protests, the crazy election. It's like the universe was just throwing everything at us at once.
It really does feel that way sometimes.
It does. So we've been talking about how idioms can be metaphorical and how grouping them together can help us learn them. But do you think they actually make English harder to learn?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because on the one hand, they can seem so unpredictable.
Right. You can't always guess the meaning from the individual words themselves.
Exactly. But on the other hand, idioms add so much personality to the language.
It's like they're the spice rack of English, right? They add all the flavor and make things so much more interesting.
I like that. And they also give you a little glimpse into the culture and history of English, like that one, break a leg, which is used in the theater world.
Oh, I've always wondered about that one.
Me too. Why would you wish someone a broken bone?
Right. It sounds kind of mean.
Right. It seems like there are different theories about where it came from, but a lot of them have to do with superstitions, about tempting fate.
Oh, like saying good luck would actually be bad luck in the theater.
Exactly. So break a leg is almost like a way of outsmarting bad luck.
That's fascinating. So it's more than just the words themselves. It's like a whole tradition.
Yeah, it's about that deeper meaning and the social context.
And that's what makes idioms so intriguing, right? They're like these little windows into a culture's beliefs and humor, their shared experiences.
Before we go too far down the idiom rabbit hole, though, Vanessa also talks about phrasal verbs in this video.
Ah, yes, phrasal verbs. Another layer of English that can be quite tricky.
Right, it's like you take a verb and then add a preposition and suddenly the meaning changes completely.
It's true, like try on versus try out. One's about clothes, the other's about testing something.
And mastering those little word puzzles, that's what really makes you sound like a native speaker.
Absolutely. It's all about those subtle nuances.
So let's dive into some specific examples from Vanessa's video. What's one of the phrasal verbs that really stood out to you?
Well, add up is a good one. It's often used when someone is telling a story and it seems suspicious or like it doesn't quite make sense.
Oh, like when someone gives you an excuse that's full of holes?
Exactly. You might say something like, his story doesn't add up. I think he's lying. It's a way to, express doubt without being too direct.
It's that feeling you get when you're watching a mystery movie and you know the detective is putting the pieces together, but something just doesn't quite fit.
Ah, I love that.
Another good one is blow up, which is when someone loses their temper and gets really angry.
Oh, this one's super relatable. Like, when I told her I couldn't come to her party, she blew up. It's almost like you can hear the explosion in the word itself.
I know, right? It's so descriptive.
Then there's run into, which can actually have two different meanings.
Yeah, this is where context is everything.
Right. It can literally mean to collide with something.
Oof. Hopefully not too hard.
Hopefully not. But it can also mean to meet someone unexpectedly.
Like I ran into my old English teacher at the grocery store.
Exactly. You wouldn't say that if you literally crashed into them with your shopping cart.
Definitely not.
So yeah, it's all about paying attention to those little clues in the sentence.
So we've seen how idioms and phrasal verbs can be a bit tricky, but they're also what make English so rich and expressive.
They really are. They add so much depth and cultural context.
Okay, are you ready to dive into some more examples?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right, I'm ready for more. Vanessa has this whole section on animal idioms that's just full of really interesting expressions.
Oh yeah, those are fun. Like, go cold turkey, which means to quit something abruptly, like all of a sudden.
Oh, that's a good one. And it actually has like a kind of vivid origin story.
Really?
Yeah. It's thought to come from how people look when they're going through withdrawal. Pale, clammy, covered in goosebumps, like a plucked turkey.
Oh, wow. I never knew that. So it's not just about quitting. It's about that really intense feeling of deprivation.
Exactly. And it shows how idioms often paint these really strong pictures in your mind, which makes them easier to remember.
That's true. What about go on a wild goose chase?
Oh, that's a classic. That's when you're searching for something that doesn't exist or is just, like, impossible to find. Like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
It is, except the haystack is running away from you.
Haha, I like that.
And then there's crying wolf.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. It's about how if you keep making false claims, people will eventually stop believing you.
Right. It erodes trust. Just like in that fable, the boy who cried wolf one too many times.
So it seems like these animal idioms, they're not really about animals at all, are they?
That's a good point. They're more about human behavior and the lessons we learn from, the natural world.
Exactly. It's like they're using these familiar images to express something deeper.
I think you're right. It's almost like a cultural shorthand.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. What about those idioms that use body parts? Like break a leg, which we talked about earlier.
Oh, yeah. Vanessa calls those body idioms. And they can be tricky because, the meaning is often totally different from the literal meaning of the words.
Oh, totally. Break a leg has nothing to do with actual bones.
Not at all. And that one's a perfect example of how idioms can be really culture specific.
What about pulling my leg?
Ah, yes. That one just means to tease or joke.
I always picture someone like literally stretching someone's leg, which sounds kind of painful.
Yeah. But it's all about understanding that figurative meaning. Pulling someone's leg is about playful deception, not actual physical harm.
So context is key, once again.
Always. So what other body idioms stood out to you?
Hmm. Let's see. Keep an eye out.
Oh, yeah, that's a very practical one. It just means to be watchful, to pay attention.
Like, keep an eye out for my keys. I think I dropped them somewhere around here.
Exactly, be observant. And then there's see eye to eye, which is all about agreement.
Or disagreement.
Right, and it really highlights how important perspective is. You know, two people can look at the same situation and have completely different interpretations.
Like when you're arguing with a friend about a movie. You both saw the same film, but you have totally opposite opinions.
It's true, but, you know, those differences in perspective, they can make things interesting, right?
I agree. Although sometimes those differences can lead to, a bit of conflict, especially if someone has a chip on their shoulder.
Oh, that's a good one. It suggests that someone is carrying around some resentment or anger from a past experience.
It's like they're walking around with this invisible weight, making them super sensitive to any perceived slight.
It's a good reminder to, try to be understanding of other people's past experiences.
Absolutely. Okay, let's switch gears again and talk about some work idioms. Vanessa has tons of examples that are really relatable.
Yeah, and these idioms often reflect the values and challenges of a specific work culture.
Like burn the candle at both ends, which is like the ultimate idiom for overworking yourself.
Oh, that's so true. It's like you're trying to get everything done, but you're not giving yourself enough time to rest and recharge.
Yeah, and eventually that candle's going to burn out.
Exactly. It's a reminder that balance is so important.
Okay, what about go the extra mile?
Ah, yes. This one's all about exceeding expectations. It's about taking initiative and going above and beyond what's required.
It's like the difference between just doing your job and really striving for excellence.
And it often comes down to attitude. Are you passionate about what you do? Are you willing to put in that extra effort?
Okay, let's talk about some phrasal verbs that are common in the workplace. The one I probably use the most is figure out.
Oh, yeah. Figure out is so versatile. It can be used for solving problems, understanding situations, just, generally discovering something new.
Like, I need to figure out how to use this new software. These instructions make no sense.
Or, we need to figure out why sales are down this quarter. It's all about that process of investigation and analysis.
Right. And sometimes figuring things out involves getting input from others. That's where fill me in comes in handy.
Oh, that's a good one. It's a great way to ask for information, especially if you've missed something.
Like, I missed the meeting this morning. Can you fill me in on what was discussed?
Exactly. It shows you're engaged and you want to stay in the loop.
Okay, here's one that we should all be wary of. Cut corners.
Ooh, yeah. That's when you try to take shortcuts or compromise on quality, usually to save time or money.
It's tempting to do, especially when you're under pressure.
It is tempting, but it often leads to bigger problems later on.
Like they say, sometimes it's better to slow down and do things right the first time.
Now let's talk about a phrasal verb that's all about positive anticipation. Look forward to.
Oh, I love this one. It's about that feeling of excitement for something that's coming up.
Yeah, like when you're counting down the days to a vacation or a concert.
Or even just the weekend.
Exactly. And sometimes looking forward to something involves doing a bit of research. That's where lookup comes in.
Oh, right. Like, I need to look up the definition of that word.
Or I'm going to look up some reviews for that new restaurant.
It's all about seeking information. Okay, last one for this section. Put off.
Ah, yes, the classic idiom for procrastination.
We all do it. It's that tendency to delay things that we find unpleasant or overwhelming.
Like, I really need to clean my room, but I keep putting it off.
Or he's been putting off having that difficult conversation with his bosses.
It's human nature to avoid things that make us uncomfortable. But sometimes you just gotta face those things head on.
So we've covered a lot of ground with these work-related idioms and phrasal verbs. What are your thoughts so far?
I'm really struck by how much these expressions reveal about our attitudes towards work. Our relationships with colleagues, even our personal values.
It's like they're the secret code for understanding the workplace.
I like that. A secret code. They give us insights into those unspoken rules and expectations.
Totally. Are you ready to explore some more?
Absolutely. Bring it on.
Right. So we've covered idioms about animals and bodies and even the workplace. But Vanessa also has this category called miscellaneous idioms. The ones that don't really fit neatly into any other category.
Oh, I like that. Embracing the miscellaneous, it's kind of like how language works, right? It's always evolving.
Exactly. And just like those random drawers we all have at home, where we just toss things that don't have specific place.
Uh-huh. Yeah. You never know what you'll find in there.
Right. So what's one of those miscellaneous idioms that stuck with you?
Let me see. Oh, on the ball is a good one. It means to be alert, competent, ready to handle anything.
It's like, that friend who just always seems to have it together no matter what.
Exactly. They're organized, proactive, always one step ahead.
I think we could all use a little more on the ball in our lives.
I agree. And then there's 24/7, which we hear all the time these days.
It literally means 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we use it to describe something that's just constantly happening.
It really reflects our, always-on culture. We're expected to be reachable and productive at all times.
It's like the internet never sleeps, and neither do we.
It's true. But, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it gives us flexibility and connectivity. But on the other hand, it can lead to burnout,
It's all about finding that balance, knowing when to be on and when to, disconnect.
Exactly. Okay, here's one that offers a bit of comfort, especially when things don't go as planned. Better late than never.
Oh, that's a classic. It's like, punctuality is important, sure, but showing up eventually is still better than not showing up at all.
It's a very forgiving sentiment. Sometimes delays happen.
It's like that friend who always shows up late to parties, but they always bring the fun.
Haha. That's a great way to put it. It's about focusing on the positive. Okay, what about so far so good?
Ooh, that's a good one. It expresses cautious optimism.
Right. It's like saying, things are going well, but I'm also aware that things could change.
It's like that feeling you get when you're on a road trip and you've made it halfway without any major problems.
But there's still a long way to go, and you never know what might happen.
It's about enjoying the journey, but also being prepared for the unexpected.
Exactly. Okay, so we've explored idioms about time and expectations, even technology. But let's not forget about those phrasal verbs. Vanessa has some great examples that focus on, actions and experiences.
It can be tricky, those combinations of verbs and prepositions.
They can, but they're worth mastering. They really add, a natural flow to your English.
Okay, so let's start with back someone up, which means to support or defend someone.
Yeah, it's like having someone's back, whether it's in a personal or professional context.
It's that feeling of knowing you have someone in your corner.
Exactly. Someone who's there for you no matter what. It's about loyalty and solidarity.
All right, here's one that's about embracing challenges. Bring it on.
Oh, I love this one. It's so bold. It's like saying, I'm not afraid, I'm ready for anything.
It's a great way to pump yourself up.
Definitely. Now, this next one requires a bit more tact, bring up, which just means to introduce a topic into a conversation.
Right. And it's especially important to be mindful when, bringing up something sensitive or controversial.
It's true. It's about choosing your words carefully and, being aware of how it might affect others.
And timing is everything. Sometimes it's better to wait for the right moment.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about call off, which means to cancel or postpone something.
It's always a bummer when that happens, but, sometimes it can't be helped.
Right, like when a concert gets rained out or someone gets sick and you have to reschedule a meeting.
And speaking of things not going as planned, sometimes we just need to remind ourselves to calm down.
Sometimes we do. Take a deep breath, de-stress.
Exactly. Okay, let's end on a positive note with catch up, which means to reconnect with someone after some time apart.
Oh, I love that. It's about keeping those relationships strong, staying connected.
It's like meeting up with an old friend and picking up right where you left off.
It's a good reminder that even when life gets busy, it's so important to make time for those meaningful connections.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into English idioms and phrasal verbs. What's your biggest takeaway?
I'm really struck by just how much these expressions tell us about, human nature, our values, our shared experiences.
It's like they're this secret language that helps us understand each other better.
I love that. A
Thanks.
secret language. And the more you understand these idioms and phrasal verbs, the more you can appreciate the richness and complexity of English.
It's like having a decoder ring for unlocking all the nuances of conversation.
Exactly. So, keep exploring, keep practicing, keep having fun with the language.
That's great advice. And we'll see you on our next deep dive.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at everyday English conversation, but from a pretty unusual angle.
Okay.
Get this, our source material is a YouTube video
Oh, dude.
that's supposed to help people learn English while they sleep.
Okay.
Now, of course, We're going to be wide awake for this deep dive.
Right.
But the idea of absorbing knowledge in your sleep, that's pretty fascinating, don't you think?
It really is. I mean, the science behind learning while you're asleep, that's still kind of up in the air.
Right.
But what we can definitely focus on today is all these cool English conversations in this video.
Yeah.
It's like a sneak peek into how people actually use the language, in all sorts of situations, from their morning routine to like late night chats.
Okay, so let's break down how this video is actually structured.
Okay.
It's clever. It's like simulating a whole day.
Okay.
Starts with morning stuff, like asking for directions or grabbing a coffee.
Yeah.
Then it moves into the afternoon, shopping, ordering lunch, and it eventually gets to those evening situations, dinner conversations, weekend plans, even a kind of frantic taxi ride to the airport.
Wow, that's a whole day.
It is.
Packed in there.
Yeah, and what I find really interesting is it's not just like isolated phrases.
No.
It puts them into these real-life contexts.
Yeah, exactly. So you see how language actually flows in real conversation.
It's like immersion, but virtual.
Yeah, virtual immersion. I like that.
So let's jump into some specific dialogues that caught my eye.
Okay.
The shopping scenes were pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There's one where someone is trying to haggle, get a discount on a sweater. They're saying it's a bit over my budget.
Oof, relatable.
They even ask, is that okay for you?
Interesting.
What I found interesting is how direct the language is.
Yeah, you know what? That directness is a big part of how English is spoken.
Right.
Especially in casual situations.
Yeah.
In some cultures, that could seem rude.
Yeah, you're right.
But in a lot of English-speaking places, it's seen as, like, assertive.
Right.
Or even, like, being smart with your money.
Yeah.
It's a little cultural difference the video picks up on.
Yeah, through the dialogue.
Exactly.
And it's not even just the words themselves, it's the tone and delivery.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Then there's the classic being lost situation.
Oh, we've all been there.
Right. Someone is asking for directions, using phrases like, excuse me, do you know how to get to?
Right.
And is it far from here?
Yeah.
It's like a little mini travel guide tucked into these conversations.
I love that. And those phrases, while they seem simple,
yeah,
they're so helpful for language learners.
They are.
They give them the tools to deal with unfamiliar situations.
Right.
To connect with people even if you don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
It shows how language is really, at its heart, a tool to connect and solve problems.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, and speaking of problem solving, the video even covers those awkward moments I think we've all had, like spilling a drink or forgetting your wallet.
Oh, yeah. There's one where someone says, oh, no, I think I left my wallet at home.
Oh, no.
Could you spot me?
Oh, I've been there.
So relatable.
It is.
And it gives you a natural way to talk about that common problem.
It does. And you know what else is clever? How they slip in those cultural things through these situations.
Yeah.
Like offering to pay someone back that's common in a lot of English-speaking cultures.
Yeah.
It shows a level of trust.
Right.
These unspoken rules that the video reveals through its dialogue.
You're right. Those little details make such a big difference in how we understand and interpret the language.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's move on to a scene I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate to.
Okay.
Ordering food at a restaurant.
Love it.
The video takes us through the whole process, asking for a table, the specials, even dealing with dietary needs. I was struck by how they just casually asked, is there a service charge included?
That's a great example of how even a little phrase can say a lot about cultural norms.
In some countries, it might be a no-no to ask about the bill directly.
Right.
But in a lot of English-speaking places, it's totally fine, even expected.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding those unwritten rules.
Yeah, those unspoken rules of etiquette.
Exactly, that kind of guide how we interact.
What did you find interesting about that restaurant scene?
You know what stood out to me? How they dealt with a mix-up.
Oh, yeah.
With the order.
Yeah.
Instead of freaking out, the character calmly explains, excuse me, I think there's been a mistake.
Yeah.
I ordered the vegetarian pasta, not the chicken.
Right.
It's a good lesson in being assertive.
Yeah.
Communicating clearly.
Especially in a frustrating situation.
Absolutely.
Have you ever had a similar experience, maybe when traveling, where clear communication was super important?
Oh, yeah, totally. I once had this situation in another country where my hotel reservation, it was gone.
Oh, no.
It was stressful, but I stayed calm, spoke slowly, and used simple phrases.
Right.
And I was able to sort it out.
Yeah. Good for you.
It really showed me the power of even basic language skills.
Yeah, yeah.
When you're in the real world.
Totally. Those experiences make you appreciate clear communication so much.
Yeah, they do.
Okay, before we finish up this part of our deep dive,
Fern.
let's switch gears to the travel dialogues.
Ooh, fun.
This is where it gets creative.
Okay.
It takes us on a virtual trip with all kinds of transport buses, trains, even a kind of crazy taxi ride to the airport.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
What I found insightful about these travel parts was how they blended those practical phrases with cultural cues.
Yeah.
Like in the taxi scene, the character says, "Please take me to the airport." And could you step on it? My flight leaves in an hour.
Ooh, the pressure.
It doesn't just show urgency,
Right.
but also hints at that fast-paced life in some cities.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That sense of urgency.
It's like they snuck in these little cultural nuggets, giving you a taste of what life is like. In English-speaking communities, what did you think of the bus scene?
Okay.
Where someone asks, "Excuse me, could you tell me when we reach?" Such a simple question, but it says a lot about social etiquette.
Oh, it does. That question highlights how important politeness is.
Right.
And being indirect in English, especially with strangers.
Yeah.
It's not just the words, but your tone and how you act.
Yeah, showing respect and consideration.
Exactly. It's fascinating how the video captures all that.
I know, right? Through dialogue.
Yeah.
So, fellow deep divers, I hope you're enjoying this trip into everyday English.
Me too.
We've gone through shopping struggles, restaurant etiquette, travel tips, even those awkward moments that make us human.
It's all part of life.
But we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, there's more.
In the next part of our deep dive, we're going deeper into more of these cool dialogues, unpacking those hidden messages and cultural insights. So stay tuned, because there's a lot more to discover.
Can't wait. Welcome back to our deep dive.
Into the world of everyday English.
As seen through this sleep learning YouTube video,
I know.
It's amazing what we can learn.
It is.
Just by listening to how people talk.
Right. Yeah. It's like every dialogue is this little treasure chest.
Oh, I like that.
Of cultural insights, communication strategies. Speaking of treasures, or maybe lack thereof, that lost luggage scene at the airport really got to me. I could practically feel the character's stress.
Oh, yeah.
As they tried to explain everything to the airport staff.
Right.
Have you ever had a travel mishap like that?
Oh, absolutely, where communication was key.
I once missed a connecting flight.
Oh, no.
Because of a delay.
Oh.
And I had to rebook like crazy. It was a whirlwind of new words.
Oh, I bet.
Like standby lists, gate change, rerouting.
Right.
But I took a deep breath.
Good for you.
Used clear, simple language.
And I got through it.
I'm glad.
It reminded me that even basic communication skills can be super powerful.
Absolutely. It's in those moments of stress
that
you realize how important it is to express yourself clearly.
Right.
But besides those essential travel phrases, this video has some real gems.
Ooh, what kind?
In terms of idiomatic expressions, there's one dialogue where a character talks about killing two birds with one stone.
Oh, I love that one.
Right. Combining a business trip with a family visit.
That's a great example of how this video goes beyond textbook English into the world of idioms.
Right.
Killing two birds with one stone.
Right.
Of course, doesn't actually involve harming any birds.
Right. Of course not.
It's a figure of speech.
It is.
Meaning you accomplish two things at once.
Yeah.
Those nuances really help us understand how language is used every day.
Absolutely. It's like a secret code.
A secret code. I like that.
To unlock the real meaning.
Yeah, the deeper meaning.
Okay, I want to switch gears a bit and talk about the dialogues about school and studying.
Yeah.
There's one where two characters are talking about their favorite hobbies for an essay.
Okay.
Another where they're catching up on missed classes.
Yeah.
What struck me was how they captured that casual, almost slangy way students talk.
Absolutely.
You hear phrases like, hit the books.
Yeah, meaning to study hard.
Exactly.
Or ace a test, getting a great score.
It reminds us that language is always evolving.
Oh, dear.
Every generation adds its own twist. It's those colloquialisms that make language feel real.
It does. It makes it relatable.
And speaking of relatable, those dialogues about everyday annoyances.
Oh, yeah, like what?
A messy roommate. A stolen bag.
Oh, no.
Even a cat breaking into the kitchen.
Those are great. They had some humor.
They do.
And remind us that language is about shared experiences.
Right, even the frustrating ones.
Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of emotions,
Okay.
we can't forget those dialogues that touch on serious topics.
Right.
Health concerns, relationships, career choices.
Big stuff.
It's fascinating how English is used in those conversations.
It is.
One that stood out to me was where a character was worried about a friend who was feeling down.
Yeah.
They said, "You look sad. What's wrong? Is there anything I can do?"
This is so sweet.
It's such a simple but powerful example
It is.
of how language can offer support and empathy.
It shows how much English-speaking cultures value caring for others.
Right?
Sometimes just acknowledging someone's feelings can make all the difference.
It really can.
Yeah.
Then we see those dialogues where characters are angry or disappointed.
Right, the other side of the coin.
Like where one says, "I'm really disappointed in you. I thought I could trust you."
Oof, straight to the point.
It's blunt.
It is.
But the message is clear.
That's a good point. It's interesting to see those different ways of expressing yourself in English. Sometimes being direct is good.
Right. For honesty.
And clarity.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's better to be subtle to avoid conflict or hurt feelings.
It depends on the situation and who you're talking to.
Exactly. It's about reading those cues and understanding the unspoken rules.
Okay, let's talk about something I know a lot of listeners are curious about.
Okay, what's that?
Dating and relationships.
Wow.
This video doesn't shy away from that part of life.
Good.
There are dialogues about first dates, romantic gestures, even heartbreak.
Oh, the whole spectrum.
What are your thoughts on these scenes?
I think it's great they included them.
Me too.
Romantic relationships are universal.
They are.
We see characters flirting, being affectionate, figuring out those early stages of getting to know someone.
Right.
It reminds us that language is key for building closeness and connection.
And it's not always easy, right?
No, not always.
There's that scene where someone's trying to figure out why their partner's upset.
Oh, yeah. Saying, "Did I do something wrong? You seem distant."
Classic miscommunication.
It is.
And hurt feelings.
We've all been there.
Oh, for sure.
That scene highlights how important open communication is.
It does.
In relationships.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to ask directly.
Yeah. Instead of guessing or reading between the lines.
It's about building trust and resolving conflict.
Absolutely.
It's easy to make assumptions.
It is.
But sometimes you just got to ask.
You have to ask. Yeah.
Okay, before we wrap up this part,
I
want to touch on those dialogues about cultural differences.
All right.
Social norms. It's fascinating how those differences show up in how people talk.
Oh, for sure.
One that comes to mind is where two characters discuss personal space.
Okay.
One says, "Excuse me, is this seat taken?"
Right. Just a simple question.
Simple.
But it shows how important it is to respect personal boundaries.
Especially in public.
Yeah.
It's those little things
They are.
that can trip us up.
When we're with people from different cultures, we might not even realize our own cultural biases.
Until we see another way of doing things.
Right.
It's about being open-minded.
It is.
Observant.
Yeah.
Recognizing that there are so many different ways to communicate, interact.
That's what makes language learning so fascinating.
It is.
It's a cultural journey.
Yes.
As much as it is about learning new words and grammar.
You've got it. It's about broadening our horizons.
It is.
Seeing the world from different perspectives.
Now, fellow deep divers.
Yes.
I know we've covered a lot.
We have.
But we're not done yet.
There's more.
In our final part, we'll go even deeper into the cultural stuff and how these everyday conversations can help us connect, communicate, and navigate the world with more confidence and understanding.
I like it.
So stay tuned for the grand finale.
I can't wait.
Welcome back to the deep dive. It's amazing how much we've uncovered.
I know, right?
Just by looking at these everyday conversations from this sleep learning YouTube video.
Who knew there were so many insights hiding in plain sight?
Right.
Yeah.
As we go into this final part of our deep dive, I want to shift our focus from looking at individual dialogues to thinking about the bigger picture, what we've learned.
Sounds good.
One thing that keeps coming up for me is this idea of language as a reflection of cultural values.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Language isn't just this neutral tool.
Right.
It's shaped by the beliefs and customs and norms of the people who use it.
We see this in the video's dialogues.
I do.
From the emphasis on politeness, to the comfort with expressing personal opinions.
Right, even if they're different.
Even if they're different from the people around you.
Exactly.
We've seen characters just casually asking, is that okay for you?
Right.
Or, do you mind if I? They seem like simple phrases.
They do.
But they show how important it is in the culture.
To be considerate.
To be considerate.
To respect boundaries.
Yeah, it's a subtle difference.
It is.
That you might not get if you were learning English just from a textbook.
Exactly. It's those little things that can trip us up.
Right.
When we're talking to people from different cultures,
Yeah.
we might misunderstand a tone or miss a cue.
Yeah.
And that can lead to
awkwardness,
misunderstandings.
But the more we're exposed to real language in context,
in real situations,
the more we develop
that sensitivity,
Yeah.
that awareness.
It's like building a map.
I like that analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
Of how to navigate social situations.
Not just with grammar.
Right.
But with culture, too.
And speaking of navigating, those dialogues about travel were so insightful. They didn't just give directions. They showed us how to approach strangers, ask for help, and even handle unexpected problems gracefully, calmly.
Yeah.
What I found fascinating about those travel parts was how they showed the importance of nonverbal communication.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We saw characters using gestures, facial expressions, body language, especially when they couldn't understand the words.
Right.
It reminds us that communication...
That's more than words.
It's more than just words,
It's a whole experience.
It is.
It's like a crash course in cross-cultural communication.
Packed into these conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the original idea of this video.
Okay.
Helping people learn English in their sleep.
Right.
What do you think about that now?
It's an interesting idea.
It is?
The science is still out there.
Right.
But I think we can all agree that the content is really valuable.
I agree.
Even if we're not absorbing it all.
Subconsciously.
While we sleep.
Right.
Because there's so much to work with.
It does. Authentic language that we can actively learn from.
It's like a virtual world.
I like that.
To practice our English.
We save space.
Yeah.
We can listen to the dialogues over and over.
Yeah.
Pick up new words and phrases.
Right.
Even role play to build confidence.
And the best part is, anyone with internet can access it.
Right.
You don't need a fancy language course.
You don't need to travel.
Right. You don't need to travel.
This video gives you a way to learn that's convenient and affordable.
It's like having a personal tutor.
Right in your pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, as we wrap up our deep dive,
All right.
I want to leave our listeners with a final thought.
Okay, I'm ready.
Imagine you're in one of these situations, navigating a market, ordering food in a restaurant, or just talking to someone new.
Right.
How would you use what you've learned to handle it with confidence?
That's the real challenge.
It is, right?
It's one thing to just listen.
Yeah.
But it's another to actually use it.
In real life.
The beauty of language learning is that it's a journey.
It is.
And every interaction, every conversation is a chance to improve.
To get better.
To see the world in new ways.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
So fellow deep divers, I encourage you to take on the challenge.
Yes.
Step outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Use what you've learned from this deep dive to navigate the world with confidence and cultural awareness.
I love it.
The possibilities are endless.
They are.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.
Bye, everyone.